Nolan King here for MMA Junkie, and I'm being joined by UFC bantamweight contender Cory Sandhagen, who is outside in Colorado, as I presume, enjoying the quarantine life.
Not enjoying it, but we're grinding through it. Last week it kind of hit me a little hard. I was like, I'm ready to get back in the gym, ready to get back to normal life, but I don't know. I guess we have to. So what's the worth of complaining about it?
Right on, and I know this has kind of come at maybe a less than ideal time for you. You haven't fought for quite some time. Your first, you had three fights there in the span of 7 months, and now it's been 8 months, and we haven't seen you inside the cage. So I guess how frustrating is that to be on the sitting on the sideline waiting for a matchup, and then also to have this thing be tacked on the end of it, so to speak.
It's not terrible. I mean, this part isn't terrible because everyone's having to go through this, so this part isn't too bad. But Um, not fighting in so long, yeah, that really sucks. I wasn't too bummed about it, to be honest with you. I'm not as concerned with when I'm gonna fight as I am concerned with having a quality opponent that I think is gonna do a lot for me. So I was happy with the Aljamain fight that was supposed to happen in San Diego on May 16th, and then all of this stuff happened, and I doubt that date is happening now. So that was kind of the more frustrating part. Now I think everyone's kind of back in limbo with opponents and stuff, so I'm back in limbo. So that's kind of the more frustrating part because I don't know who I'm fighting. I don't know who to prepare for. But once that gets all situated, I'm not stressing too bad. I've still been getting better every day, so it's all good.
Yeah, and we'll talk about you here in a second, but I want to get your immediate reaction because last night Dana White announced officially that, somewhat officially, that Dominic Cruz is in the works to get the next title shot against Henry Cejudo. So I guess just give me your immediate reaction there. I think a lot of people had you as somebody they thought would be penciled in for that title shot if Aldo wasn't ready, or Aljamain Sterling, in terms of the fighters in the U.S. that could take that fight. So I guess just kind of give me your reaction there on the Cruz fight.
Yeah, I see things pretty logistically. Um, from the standpoint of I like MMA and I got into MMA for the purpose of fighting the best guys and was under the assumption that that's what the organization was doing too. I don't think these guys are bad fighters by any means. Obviously, I don't think Cruz is a bad fighter, Cejudo is a bad fighter. Any of these guys are bad fighters. What I will say though is I think that on paper I have the best argument for the next title shot. I know that I'm not as popular as a lot of the guys. My name doesn't get thrown around as much, but if we're talking just numbers, um, I mean, I beat a Sun Sal last, who is ranked number 3, and the only 3 other people ahead of me are Maurice, who uh, doesn't, I don't think is going to get a shot after the last time that he fought Cejudo. Number 2 would be Aljamain. My last win was against someone that Aljamain lost to. And then Petr Yan, who beat Faber and then jumped up to number 3 ahead of me. So on paper, I think I have the best argument. Cruz also hasn't fought in a couple of years. I filled in for him, I think it was a year and a half ago for that fight to fight John Lineker. That's how I actually got that fight, is because I was filling in for him. I've been putting in work since then. And I mean, it's a little frustrating, but I understand that money's a part of it too. I just don't really know how to get myself to be famous enough to be in that position. But I guess that just comes with fights and who you're fighting. So I'm not stressing it too much.
Yeah, I'm sure longevity has a lot to do with it. You've only had 5 fights in the UFC, but do you feel like that with the way that the division is, where the guys like Dominic Cruz or Jose Aldo are getting title fights, do you feel like that you might have to try to start calling people out, or I know your Twitter, you're not too active on Twitter, so do you feel like you need to up the game there, or just kind of stay true to yourself and good things will come?
It's something that I've been struggling with. I really don't like Twitter. I don't like the idea of having any more social media stuff than I already have to do. Um, I mean, I did call kind of everyone that was above me out on my Instagram, but I'm definitely don't fit into that bill of being the guy that's going to stir the pot too much to get attention, like some of the people in this game. But to be honest with you, man, I found that a lot more good comes from me being in a peaceful state of mind instead of me having to stress out about what's going on on the internet, which I know isn't necessarily the world that we live in, but as far as my peace goes in my everyday life, that's what I do to be most happiest. So that's what I do. I just stay in my lane. I keep getting better, and I just have faith that at some point I will get the call to be a world champion, and I'll be ready for it whenever that comes. And I even have a little bit more faith, because when that call does come, it will be 100% completely earned by my skill and what I've done and how much work I put in the gym. And that just gives me more confidence. So all good, man. It's for my peace. That's why I don't start talking trash and stirring the pot. It's easier for me to live in peace than it is for me to live in that state of mind. So.
And you talk about being ready for the call. Dominic Cruz, obviously a guy that has had his fair share of injuries, well documented. Do you feel like that, if something, God forbid, were to happen to him for this upcoming fight, if May 9th, if the UFC calls, hey, we have Henry Cejudo, do you want him? Would that be within a time frame that you could take, or is that too soon?
No, I mean, when a world championship fight comes up, you say yes. It doesn't matter, quarantine, right off the couch, whatever it is, you say yes to that fight. So I'll say yes to that fight. Depending on I'm bringing my weight down and I'm staying in moderate shape, but I'm not putting all of my eggs into the basket of that happening. But if that call comes, I'm not going to say no to that. So.
And I know that you were kind of, there were some rumblings about you and Aljamain Sterling, a fight being in the works for San Diego, and then that was too soon, so it was going to be pushed. So, if the Cruz Cejudo fight does go through, is that still the matchup that interests you? Are you hoping for that one, or kind of what's the game plan there?
Yeah, I mean that's what I've been telling my agent. I want the Aljamain fight. I already did all my studying on him. I feel like I have the blueprint kind of laid down. It's just about a matter of training. I told them, because I think that the UFC is going to start having to rattle out fights as often as possible when hopefully the light at the end of the tunnel starts to show itself. So I'm thinking that I was going to just tell him, listen, I'll just fight whenever, just because I was really antsy. But I think that the smarter thing to do would probably wait until our Colorado lockdown is all done, so I can actually start touching my training partners and not just running and lifting and hitting the bob downstairs. So I think that the earliest I could be happy with is June. But like I said, big enough opportunity where I'm not going to say no. So.
And before I let you go, I'm just going to ask you for two predictions, the fights that are relevant in your division right now. Moraes versus Jan and Cejudo versus Cruz. Are you feeling any way in either one of those in terms of who's going to win?
Yeah, so in my head, and I know I'm being biased in my head, but I could see this scenario working out this year, depending on some factors. But I could definitely see Moraes beating Jan. I know that Moraes doesn't do the greatest in fights that are more than 2 or 3 rounds, but I think that Moraes is better than Jan. I think that Jan likes to play with fire, and Moraes isn't the guy to play with fire with. And then I fight Aljamain. So once I think the hype gets shut down of Jan, because I know the UFC and the fans are really big on Jan right now. Confuses me why. I know he has an exciting style. He's technical. Hasn't really beaten anyone too relevant, but Jan loses, I think, to Moraes. I don't think that they do Moraes and Cejudo again, and then it leaves me and Aljamain's fight as the next number 1 contender spot. So I think when Jan loses, that kind of clears that tunnel out of the way, and then it becomes the focus is on me and Aljamain of who's going to be next, and then I think that I win that fight too. So I could see it playing out in my favor this year. But then you add in a bunch of factors like Frankie, Jose Aldo, what happens with this Cruz thing. So it's all over the place, man. But yeah, I love the Aljamain fight. I think that sets me up really good, especially if Jan loses to Moraes.
Awesome, man. Well, if that fight happens, best of luck, and I appreciate the time today, Cory.
Yep, cool. Thanks, Nolan, for having me.